Okay, so who else can pay for it? Well, those who still benefit from slavery. Here's an Airbnb property owner benefiting from the plantation house he purchased as a well-to-do lawyer. Imagine the generations of family stability that it takes and discipline that it takes to become a lawyer. Not saying that we, as black people, again, I want to speak to a testament to our resiliency as a race is absolutely amazing and astounding, considering the deep systemic issues that still plague us. We are an incredible people. We have nothing to hold our head down about, nothing to be hopeless about, nothing to not feel empowered about, absolutely nothing. Okay. And for those who like to gaslight and say, oh, well, nothing's wrong with y'all. Y'all could, y'all still making it. I got a black friend. He's doing great. So again, we love to, the exception is not the rule. Okay, we're talking about, I'm speaking from a place of the total framework, the total, 500-degree zoom out of the black community, the big picture, okay, of our people as a whole. And so when I like to speak of us, but I had to speak on our resiliency. There's great stories about black men, young black men in high school that are all earned scholarships as well, and are all of them earned scholarships. Okay, we got we have inventors like Moses West creating water out of thin air. Hope he comes up with a water bottle. That would be really good, something cheap and affordable that anybody can afford. For people who struggle with water situations. But anyways, we have great inventions and things. Of course, a lot was stolen. And so, again, shout out to black people, for being resilient through all of this. Now, 601 on the time stamp, he states that you can't really do anything about it, but there's actually a lot you could do about owning a previous plantation house. How about taking a portion of your profits, putting that into something that, can get a black person, a homeless person off the street or out of their cars, or just people who do Uber, Lyft, and they, living out of their cars. So again, these are things that people can do to make a difference. Again, there were 2.8 million views on the video. If just 10% of those people visited this plantation, that would mean 280,000 people seen in the past year, which would be well over $8 million. I don't know if he makes that much. This is just an estimate, an assumption, but that'll be $29.17 for one adult is his price. So, taking those profits and, using them, but I'm sure he makes good money off of this plantation. Just people who, just for filming videos and doing videos and, interviews and stuff. Who knows how much, is getting paid for that? Could be 16 million for a year. We don't know, right? So did you know that from 1920s to today, the percentage of black landowners steadily dropped from 14% to only 1.3% across the nation? So again, if we're doing better than the 1920s, if we're making so much progress that people love to gaslight and say we're doing so much better, then what, again, why would this be happening? So who is entitled to reparations? So foundational black American descendants of slaves, of freedmen, and formerly enslaved people. Arguments against reparations. Number one, your status as a black American. We're going to go over this particular information. First of all, shout out to Real Nagas. Great channel, good information, hard-hitting information. He covers the Know Your Rights Foundation, which is very important at this current time and era. This is not an attack or throw shade at what he does or his work in any way, shape, or form, brother. I don't do this on that channel. I don't do attack videos. Okay, not really. I do highlight people who, clearly, forked tongue. I'll highlight that because that's important for our people to not invest money into people who are not people who fulfill what they said they were going to do, right? And I hold myself accountable for that as well. I said I was going to do this report. I was working on it. Shout out to the people who still say subscribe despite the time and effort it took to get this complete. And we're going to continue on with this particular information. So the special report will cover some of the counter arguments to his primary premise. He did a video called 40 Acres and a Fool. So what is your status? So speaking about status. Okay, so his first premise, from my perspective, is invalid. It says that he said that black people must declare their nationality to receive a rightful inheritance. His next premise said that modern reparation idea comes from General Field Order 15 from William Sherman. Beginning at the timestamp at 35 of the video, the words "black is not a nationality" and "African American are not recognized by law." So his conclusion is that declaring your status is needed when challenging the U.S. corporate government for your rightful inheritance, not reparations. So the author of the video, Real Naga, states that the idea of modern reparations for so-called Black Americans comes from General Field Order 15, General Sherman at the end of the Civil War, promising 40 acres and a mule for the freed slaves of the South. So my first question is, it's good to have, I would like to have an example of where declaring your status led to a rightful inheritance. So if we had a real world example of that, I would like to see it. I will do some research on this. I'm not trying to attack the brother at all. We appreciate the work you're doing. Now, counter argument to the first premise. So let's go over to my counter argument. So the premise is, I feel kind of weak. The evidence of not having to change status is by a woman named Belinda Scott, who was not a foundational Black American, but actually came from Ghana and was paid a reparation 1783, earlier than the special field order date 1865. Okay, so she received her reparation and did not declare her nationality status. Now, therefore, Black people do not have to change their nationality to receive reparations. That's a fact, okay? And that's proven. That's a proven fact that there's, it did happen without having to change the status. Now, reparations are a form of compensation intended to address the harm caused by past injustice, such as slavery or systemic racism, which we know through the 13th Amendment still exists with that clause. Okay, so reparations can take many forms, including financial compensation, educational opportunities, and other resources to help address the effects of historical injustices. Again, on the 13th Amendment clause, we have to take into consideration that, if Black people are still disproportionately affected by private prisons and all of these different elements that can cause us to get in trouble for police more than anyone else. Obviously, that's going to be we're going to be incarcerated more than anyone else. In which, in that case, again, you're legally a slave again. Okay, so Belinda Scott Sutton and the Royals. So this is a good video on Belinda Scott. Premise 2: for some people, Black people will not receive reparations or restitution definitively. Right? They say, oh, you can to hell with your reparations and F your reparations. I've heard it all. However, again, there were people on the plantation who probably said, you're never going to get off this plantation either, N-word, right before they were lynched. That is speaking from a place of absolutes. The only guarantee about the future is that it will change absolutely, right? The following video covers the change in status from the Department of Human Services, and of course I went over this. Statuses can be changed, right? Things can change. So premise 3, right? There are many other examples of reparations paid in America. Here's a list of sources showing those reparations, form of reparations that have been paid. The sheer amount of moments where reparations were paid, that is more than possible for the vast majority of descendants of enslaved people. If reparations were a far-fetched idea or something that we are not going to get, or you ain't getting no effing reparations, then explain how the form of reparations was possible already, including places such as Evanston, Illinois. Premise 4: reparations is a collective idea transcending General Field Order 15. Until 1968, African Americans were kept from purchasing property, even after the Fair Housing Act of April 11th, 1968. and that source is from HUD. So that was exactly 54 years and 11 months ago, so not even a lifetime ago. According to Gross 2017, African American families were prohibited from buying homes in the suburbs in the 1940s and 50s and even into the 60s by the Federal Housing Administration, gaining none of the equity appreciation that other races or whites gained. Okay, so today those homes sell for $300,000 or $400,000 at a bare minimum, 6 to 8 times the national median income. I read a report that said there's 1 in 7 families, white families, that are in millionaires. Okay, so these are vast opportunities that are missed, and of course we know that their people are going to do business with their people first. So they're going to give benefits to their people first. If they're benefiting off of it, something obviously before they do it, work or deal with anybody else. Okay, it's just what people do. So Rashad Ritchie, shout out to him. He does have. I agree with a lot of his talking points. I disagree with some of them, but overall, I like the legal perspectives that he provides on his platform. Very well-spoken brother, very sharp, and I appreciate some of the work he does, some of the things that he highlights that of course mainstream media hasn't highlighted, and of course alternative media is now the mainstream media, and they don't like that. That's why we see things happening on the legislative level right now to stop this free speech thing. Got another fight on our hands. So, conclusion on the primary argument: the evidence shows that America paid reparations. Okay, the origin of the word reparations stems back to the 14th century, according to Enemy Online. Late 14th century, reparation or repair, act of mending. Okay, so that's what the etymology is on that one. So the 1860 census reveals that black and mulatto were classifications during slavery. That's a fact. Okay, so if you change your classification from status to Native and Black and Native American, and reparations are not paid to you, or reparations are paid to black people, you might miss out on the payment. But then again, I want to, kind of edit there. If we're getting paid based upon a lineage, descendants of enslaved people, that's the lineage is going to be better than, of course, a race-based policy, which will be met with resistance, which is what we've experienced. So California did recently publish their final reporting, and are proceeding to continue to move forward with that. And of course, we're going to be getting into California being a slave state or non-slave state. We're going to get into that information as well. So you can clearly see on the census records here, blacks, mulattoes is listed on those census records. Okay. You can see B listed on those census records as black. So again, looking cursorily over the returns, it appears that the 15th slaveholding states contained 12,240,000 inhabitants, of whom 8,039,000 were whites, 251,000 were free colored persons, and 3,950,000 are slaves. The actual gain of the whole population in those states from 1850 to 1860 was 2,627,000, equal to 27.33%. That's the big portion I want people to understand, of course, is that you can't change these records. And in the next video, we're going to go over the argument of, but wait a minute, white people were slaves. Which again is another weak, valid deflection, is what I call it, a weak, valid deflection. You cannot, until you change these census records, right, which I think we can't count that out. Okay, you can't keep deflecting from, you can't keep trying to find an exception to the rule. And this is the rule.